Some children grow up surrounded by people, but somehow still feel completely alone. They weren't the troublemaker. They weren't the favorite either. They were the quiet one, the one who learned early that being invisible was easier than being a problem. No one really asked how they felt. No one noticed when they slowly stopped speaking. And years later, those same children often grow up into adults who feel like they don't belong anywhere. But here's the strange part. Most of them never even realize why. Because the wound of the invisible child is the one nobody sees, not even the child who carries it. Imagine a dinner table. Everyone is talking. Your sibling is telling a story about school. Your parents are laughing. You try to say something, but your voice gets interrupted. Someone changes the topic. The conversation moves on. You pause for a moment, waiting for someone to notice. No one does, so you stop trying. The next day, something good happens to you. Maybe you got praise from a teacher. Maybe you made a new friend. You think about telling your parents, but something inside you hesitates. Because deep down, you're not sure anyone would care enough to listen. So you keep it to yourself. Not out of anger, just quiet understanding. Over time, this becomes a pattern. You stop asking for attention. You stop sharing your feelings. You become easy, low maintenance, the child who never causes problems. And adults often praise children like this. She's so mature for her age. He's so independent. But what they don't realize is this. Sometimes independence isn't strength. Sometimes it's survival. Psychologists often talk about emotional neglect. Not abuse, not cruelty, just absence. It happens in families where parents are busy, stressed, overwhelmed. They might love their children deeply, but love that isn't seen, felt, or heard can still leave a quiet emptiness. The invisible child learns something very early. My needs are not important. My feelings can wait. I shouldn't take up space. And children are incredibly adaptable. They don't blame the family. They adjust themselves. They shrink. They observe. They become the listener instead of the speaker, the helper instead of the one asking for help, the quiet one in the background. Pause for a moment. Think about your childhood. Were you the child who solved your own problems? The one who stayed in their room? The one who rarely asked for anything? Did people describe you as the easy kid? If that was you, there's a chance you learned invisibility without realizing it. The effects don't disappear when childhood ends. They just change shape. Invisible children often grow into adults who struggle in ways that are hard to explain. They hesitate to share their opinions. They feel guilty asking for help. They overthink simple conversations. They constantly wonder if they're being annoying, too emotional, too much. Even when someone genuinely cares about them, it can feel unfamiliar, suspicious even. Because when you grow up unseen, being seen can feel uncomfortable. Many invisible children become incredibly observant adults. They notice every shift in someone's tone, every change in facial expression. They read rooms instantly. They sense tension others miss. This is not a coincidence. It's a skill they developed early. When you grow up feeling unnoticed, you learn to notice everything else. You become emotionally intelligent, empathetic, thoughtful. But there is a hidden cost. You understand everyone else, but struggle to understand yourself. Here's something many invisible children don't realize until much later in life. They often become the emotional support for everyone around them. Friends come to them with problems. Partners rely on them for stability. People say things like, "You're such a good listener. You're always so calm. You understand me better than anyone." And part of them feels proud, but another part quietly wonders, if I stopped being useful, would anyone still choose me? Pause again for a moment. Be honest with yourself. Do you often feel like you're the one holding everything together? The one who understands everyone's emotions but rarely shares your own? If that feels familiar, you might not just be sensitive. You might be someone who learned invisibility a long time ago. But here's the twist many people never expect. The invisible child is not weak. In fact, they often become some of the strongest people emotionally. Because they spent years learning how people work, how feelings move, how silence speaks. But strength built from invisibility has one flaw. It teaches you how to care for everyone except yourself. Healing doesn't mean blaming your family. Most parents never intended to make a child feel invisible. They were dealing with their own fears, their own stress, their own emotional limits. But understanding the pattern is important because what you learned as a child, you don't have to keep repeating as an adult. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to share your thoughts, even if they interrupt the silence. You are allowed to ask for help, to speak before being asked, to be seen. And the truth is, the world often overlooks the quiet ones, the observers, the thoughtful ones in the background. But those same people carry something rare, a depth most people never develop, an ability to understand emotions in ways others cannot. So if you were the invisible child in your family, the one who stayed quiet, the one who learned not to ask for too much, the one who felt unnoticed even in a crowded home, there is something important you should know. Your voice was never unimportant. It was simply unheard. And sometimes the most powerful thing an invisible child can do as an adult is finally allow themselves to be seen.